So here then, let's look at the Shona-Ndebele revolts of 1896 and 1897. So between 1896 and 1897, there were those revolts that were staged by both the Shona and the Ndebele. So let's look at the background. What was the background to these revolts? Background. So after the whites settled in southern Rhodesia, there were a number of developments that took place there. Number one was that there was an increase in white settlement. So it meant that it was not only those 200 white settlers who came. After they settled, after they came, then others kept on coming. Others kept on coming. So there was an increase in white settlement. And also communication in both roads and telegraph network, it also improved. So when the whites were coming in, they tried to improve also the roads network and the communication through the telegraph. And again, the infrastructural development also increased. They were building many other things there in southern Rhodesia. And also the Shona and the Ndebele, they seemed to have accepted the whites' rule. And many of them were working for the whites as the farm and mine workers, or else as a policeman. So despite all this, despite all the development, despite all maybe the welcoming to say now we just need to accept that the whites are going to live with us, there were widespread of discontentment. They were not happy among the Shona and the Ndebele against the company rule and the administration, which led to the open confrontation between 1896 or 1893 and 1897. So when the whites came, they did a number of developments, but still more, the indigenous people, the Africans, they were subjected to harsh rule, and that one resulted into the open fire, the open confrontation between the whites and the Africans. So we are talking of 1893. We have just talked of the Matabele War, and 1897, whereby between 1896 and 1897 there was that what we are going to talk about here, the Ndebele Shona revolts. So what were the causes of the revolts? What caused these revolts in 1896, 1897? Number one was that the Ndebele grievances. The Ndebele grievances caused the revolts. So we're going to look at a number of issues under these Ndebele grievances. Number one was that in 1893, the Ndebele were defeated by the BSA company, and they came under the company's rule or control. So the Ndebele, they hated being subordinates of the whites because they regarded themselves as the masters, the owners of the area. Just remember, they were raiding all others who were there. So they were taking themselves as the masters. The coming of the whites, it put them, maybe they lost their authority. So they hated the whites. And again, the Ndebele disliked being forced to work in European mines and plantations. So them, the masters, now they have become the forced laborers. So they did not like that, the Ndebele. And the Ndebele did not like to be patrolled and arrested by the Shona policemen who were employed by the company. So the Shona were recruited into the company police, and they took advantage of their status to harass the Ndebele, their traditional enemies. So remember, all along, the Shona were taken as underdogs to say, right, these people, we just raid them. By the Ndebele. The Ndebele were taking the Shona as inferior. But this time around, when the whites came, they employed the Shona, and they employed them as police. So as police, they were able to go into the Matabele and do whatever, and arrest even the Ndebele. So with that, the Ndebele were not happy to be arrested by the Shona, who were taken as inferior. And on the other hand, the Shona, they took that advantage to say, all right, remember, you were harassing us, you were raiding us. Now is the time for us now to harass you back. So the Ndebele were not happy with the Shona police. And the Ndebele had the deep discontent over the loss of their land and cattle in the 1893 war. So the Ndebele were not happy after the 1893 war. And also the Ndebele, they were not allowed to install another king after the death of Lobengula in 1894. So the Ndebele, oh, they were not allowed to put another king to avoid maybe them getting much organized as warriors and fight back. So they are not allowed to put back another king. Hence, they were not happy. Another cause of the Shona-Ndebele grievances of 1896 was the Shona grievances, So the Shona disliked the payment of taxes, and they also hated the hard work in Europeans' mines and plantations. So the Shona, they were taken as good people, hence they were misused, they were abused, they were charged more taxes, they were forced to pay taxes, and they introduced money economy. To say, all right, you have to pay money to the government. But the people, they were not used to the money. Hence, they were forced to go to work and later on pay also the taxes after being paid the money. And they also did not like the Shona to be forced to work in the mines and the plantations of the whites. And also another cause was the common grievances between the Shona and the Ndebele. So what were these common grievances? Number one was that the Shona and the Ndebele, they were forbidden from mining and trading with the Portuguese and were instead forced to buy expensive goods from the white settlers. So trade with all others was forbidden except buying things from the white settlers. And also the Europeans, they created an oppressive administration which forced the white settlers, which favored the white settlers. So the white settlers were the ones who were doing good in the white during this time of the BSA company. And the 1895, there was Jameson Raid in which the British attacked the Boers in South Africa. So the British were defeated, and Jameson, the administrator of the Southern Rhodesia, and others, they were shamefully captured by the Boers. So in 1893, there was what was called the Jameson Raid in South Africa, and Jameson, the administrator of Southern Rhodesia, and others, they were captured by the Boers, which means they lost that war. So this Jameson Raid contributed to the revolts in two ways. Number one, many white settlers went to fight to the Jameson Raid, and therefore the defense in Southern Rhodesia was weakened, and the Shona, they found that advantage to strike. And again, the Jameson Raid, the failure of that Jameson Raid, it showed that the Ndebele and the Shona that they could defeat the whites because they had also been defeated in the Jameson Raid or during the Jameson Raid. So they did that, and they were able. They saw to it that the whites were defeated, hence we can also defeat them. Another cause of the revolts was that there were a series of natural disasters that were religiously interpreted. So it was such disasters which made the Shona and the Ndebele to fight on one side. So the disasters were such as, number one, there was a series of poor harvest in which was due to the drought. So that one, it was attributed to the presence of the whites. And again, there was also an outbreak of locusts in 1896, which destroyed the remainder of the harvest. So everything there was attributed to the whites. And also, there was an outbreak of the livestock disease called the rinderpest disease. So this disease killed a lot of animals, and hundreds more were killed by the government to avoid the further spread of the disease. So the Ndebele, they did not like such things, killing the animals, because to stop the spread of the disease. So they did not like that one. And also the religious leaders who were there. There was the religious leader Mkwati, Nehanda, and Kagubi of the Muhondoro and Marikats. So these ones, they interpreted that disaster in a number of ways. Number one, they attributed the disasters to the reaction of the ancestral spirits, to say they were offended by the whites' intrusion in the control of the land. And also they assured the Shona and the Ndebele to say to end the disasters by driving away the whites from their ancestral land. They also assured these the Shona and the Ndebele warriors of total protection against the the live bullets, to say just go, keep on fighting against these whites, because you are not going to be killed by the live bullets. So they were told like that. So what happened during the course of the revolts? So during that course of the revolts, what happened was that the Shona and the Ndebele, they attacked the white settlers in outlying farms and mines, killing many of them. So the Shona and the Ndebele, they went to the outskirts and killed the whites who were settling in those farms and mines. And religious leaders such as Mkwati, Nehanda, and Kagui, they played an important part in organizing the Shona as well as the Ndebele. So the religious leaders, they were like the war leaders now, organizing the Shona as well as the Ndebele. And the Europeans were forming what were called the lagers to control themselves from the night attacks, and they also formed the patrol groups to rescue the colleagues in outskirts. So the Europeans were using very powerful weapons. We already talked about the machine guns that they were using. And the Shona rebellion, or in the Shona rebellion, the Shona were hiding in caves and the cottages, such that the Europeans had to use dynamites to force them out of those places. So that's what happened in the course of the war during the Shona-Ndebele revolts of 1896. So let us look at the results of the revolts, that is 1896, 1897 revolts of the Ndebele and the Shona. So number one was that both the Shona and the Ndebele, they were defeated. So the results were that the Africans were defeated, and the chiefs, they lost their authority, and some were even killed. And another one is also that the country was divided into districts, and the native commissioners were created to administer justice. So they created the native commissioners who were given authority to administer justice. And also there were some meetings, the Indawas or meetings were held with the Ndebele and the Shona, where the BSA company held the grievances of the people. And not only that, the priests of Mwari and the Muhondoro, the priests of Mwari and the Muhondoro parts, they were punished, and most of them, they were killed for organizing the rebellions. And also the Ndebele, they were disarmed. That's why we said that they were not allowed to form or to reinstall the chief after the death of Lobengula. So that's what happened, or that's what happened there. Another result was that the BSA company was discredited. It was discredited overseas for failing to maintain peace, law, and order. Remember, the charter gave mandate or permission for the BSA company to raise the police to maintain peace, law, and order, but they were discredited. they were unpopular in London to say they have failed. So further to this, the European settlers, they were also blamed for various acts of oppression. So even the white settlers, again, they were blamed for oppression. Another result was that the Africans realized that their ancestral spirits and gods were less powerful against the Europeans. So this made some Africans to start embracing Christianity. So Africans the Shona and the Ndebele, later on they realized that no, our gods are not superior or powerful than that of the whites. Therefore, let's just join the gods of the whites. And also the Shona, who continued to fight, were finally defeated in 1897 and were forbidden to build among the Europeans or near the Europeans. So during this rebellion of 1896-1897, the Shona-Ndebele revolts, it happened that the Shona were the ones who fought so fiercely, and they did not want to give up. So finally, they were also defeated. So when they were defeated, they were not allowed to build their houses near the Europeans because of what happened. And another result was that the revolts created bitter racial tensions. There were racial tensions which persisted until 1980 when Zimbabwe got her independence. So there were still racial tensions between the whites and the Africans up to 1980 when Zimbabwe now became independent. And also, the failure of the revolts made both the Shona and the Ndebele to start questioning the power of their gods, to say why did they fail, and their ancestral spirits. So this made many to join Christianity. They questioned the power of their ancestral spirits and the gods. And also the revolts continued with bitterness between the races, which continued until 1980. So let's look at the reasons. Why did the Ndebele and the Shona, why did they lose the war? Why did they lose the war? Number one was that the Europeans, the whites, were using the superior firearms. They were using machine guns as compared to the knives and arrows, spears that the Shona or the Ndebele were using. So the whites were using superior weapons. And also, certain African groups such as the Karanga, they did not join the rebellion. So it means there that the Africans were divided on the other hand. And also, upon religious instructions, the Africans, they left the route to South Africa open with the view of allowing the Europeans to leave the country via that route. So this was a very big mistake because the settlers, they received the arms and fighters and reinforcements through that route. So the organization of those Africans in southern Rhodesia was in such a way that they thought to say, right, this is the route or the road that goes to South Africa. So let us not block this route. We should leave it open so that when we cause trouble inside here, these whites will be running using this road going back to South Africa. But it was a mistake whereby failure to close that road, it led to the whites receiving more support from South Africa using the same road.